He stopped to buy street food out of nostalgia. He didn't expect to come face to face with the woman who once broke his heart. Now struggling to survive. Vihaan Arora, a billionaire hotel tycoon, wasn't the kind of man who wandered through crowded street markets. But on that particular evening, something tugged at him, an urge to escape the polished walls of boardrooms and walk through the very streets he once called home. The smell hit him first, spicy, rich, and oddly familiar. It pulled him toward a corner stall surrounded by eager customers and lined with trays of sizzling chaats and crispy pakoras. He paused, intrigued. It reminded him of college, the days when dreams were big and wallets were empty. He stepped closer. Behind the steaming pot, hands busy and apron stained, stood a woman he never thought he'd see again. Aanya, his ex-girlfriend, the woman he once imagined spending his life with, before everything fell apart. She looked older, thinner, but those eyes, they hadn't changed. For a moment, Vihaan forgot where he was. The crowd, the noise, his wealth, his power, all vanished. He took a step forward. "Aanya," he said softly. She looked up. And the ladle dropped from her hand. Anya's eyes widened as she wiped her hands on her apron, visibly shaken. The noise of the market seemed to fade for both of them as the past came rushing in. Memories of midnight calls, shared dreams, and the breakup that left no closure. Vihaan tried to smile, but even his voice trembled. "It's really you." She forced a polite smile, trying to regain composure. "Didn't expect you to be roaming around here?" "I didn't expect to see you selling food on the street," he replied gently. "What happened?" She hesitated, glancing at the growing line of customers. "Life happened, Vihaan. Not all of us became billionaires." He stood silently. "You want a plate?" she asked, as if to brush the moment away. He nodded, and she served him a fresh plate of aloo tikki, their old favorite. He took a bite, and it hit him like a wave. Not just the flavor, but the memories. "This tastes exactly like you used to make back in college," he said, almost whispering. She looked away. "I never stopped cooking, even when everything else stopped." "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, voice low. "About your dad falling sick? About dropping out? About leaving everything behind?" "I did," she said softly. "You just weren't listening back then. You were chasing success. I didn't fit into your world anymore." Vihaan's face tightened with regret. Aanya continued serving customers, her hands steady but her eyes clouded. "I wasn't angry. I just didn't want to beg for space in someone's life." Her words pierced through him. He looked around at the busy stall, the long line of loyal customers, the handmade sign that read, "Anya's Tandoori Tadka, made with heart." And in that moment he realized she had built something with nothing. Quietly. Proudly. While he was building skyscrapers, she was building survival. But he wasn't going to walk away this time. Not again. The next day, the buzz began. People whispered. Photos circulated. Was that billionaire Vihaan Arora eating street food? Isn't that his ex selling chaat? But Vihaan didn't care. He returned to Anya's stall again and again. He ate quietly, helped her carry crates, cleaned tables when crowds grew too large. At first, she resisted his presence, certain it was pity, but he kept showing up, without cameras or fanfare. On the 5th day, he arrived with a designer envelope. "I want to talk," he said gently. "Not as a billionaire, not as your past, just as me." They sat on the same bench outside her stall, where they once planned their future. The air was thick with emotion. "I never stopped thinking about you," he confessed. "I thought I was building a life worth sharing, but I left you behind." She looked at him, eyes calm but tired. And I kept going because I had no choice. This stall feeds me, pays rent, helps women in my colony who lost their jobs during COVID. I don't need charity, Vihaan. This isn't charity, he said, placing the envelope on the table. It's an investment. She raised an eyebrow. He smiled. A real business proposal. I want to turn Anya's tandoori tadka into a citywide food brand. You'll lead it. I'll fund it, but it's yours. The crowd around them went silent. People began filming. A billionaire publicly offering his ex-girlfriend a business deal? It was unheard of. But Vihaan wasn't thinking about PR. He was thinking about redemption. Anya blinked, stunned. Why now? Because I finally realized the best thing I left behind wasn't money. It was you. Anya sat in silence, the envelope resting between them like a fragile bridge built on years of pain and possibility. Are you really doing this? She asked softly. Vihaan nodded. I want to fix what I broke, not just with money, but with respect. She slowly opened the envelope. Inside was a detailed proposal. Branding, packaging, expansion plans, legal rights, all clearly stating her as founder and majority owner. No fine print, no tricks, just trust. You believed in me once, he said. Let me believe in you now. For a long moment she said nothing. Then, with a small smile, she whispered, All right, Mr. Investor. Let's see if the world's ready for tandoori tadka 2.03 months later. Headlines read, Ex-girlfriend of billionaire becomes CEO of fastest-growing street food chain. She sold chaat on the sidewalk. Now her brand is worth crores. The launch event was emotional. Reporters expected a showy affair, but Anya kept it simple, serving the first plate herself, right from her original stall, now rebuilt with polished wood and a glowing sign. Vihaan stood in the crowd, quietly watching her shine. No speeches, no claims, just pride in his eyes. Later that evening, she walked up to him. Thank you, she said. Not for the money, but for showing up, when it mattered. He smiled. It's the least I could do, for the girl who taught me what success really looks like. They didn't rush into romance. There were still scars, still spaces to heal. But from that day on, their story wasn't about what they lost. It was about what they rebuilt, with flavor, forgiveness, and a fire that never went out.